Have you ever misjudged someone so completely that the truth felt like a slap to your soul? The rain had already begun to fall that morning, thin silver strands that cut through the sleepy hush of the city. Dawn painted the skyline with a faint, reluctant gold, as if the sun itself wasn't sure it wanted to rise. In the heart of this waking metropolis stood a towering glass building, sterile, magnificent, untouchable. The kind of place where dreams were either made or crushed entirely. A black sedan slid quietly to the curb. Its engine purred like a predator waiting for movement. And near the entrance stood Maya, young, brilliant, determined, yet already exhausted by the weight of ambition. A crisp folder clutched in her hands contained the hopes she'd spent years building, a portfolio, a vision, a future she desperately wanted to claim. She checked her phone, reading the message again. Driver will pick you up at 7:15. 7:14, right on the edge of possibility. A man stepped out of the sedan, mid-30s perhaps, clean shirt, modest watch, sleeves rolled neatly. His posture was confident but not arrogant, calm like someone used to storms. "You're Maya?" he asked. His voice was warm, steady. She offered a tight nod and quickly shoved her portfolio into her bag. "Yes, you must be the driver." He didn't react, not with offense, not with agreement. Just a faint smile, unreadable. "Hop in," he said, opening the back door for her. She hesitated. A good driver might do that, but something about him felt different. Still, she stepped in. The city crawled to life around them as they drove. Horns pierced the air. Street vendors lifted metal shutters. Neon signs flickered, dying embers in a storm. Maya watched it all, fingers tapping anxiously against her knee. Every block they passed felt like time slipping through her grip. "You nervous?" he asked after a while. "Wouldn't you be?" She looked at the mirror, trying to read his eyes. "This interview, it could change my life." He nodded, thoughtful. "And what is it you want to change?" "Exactly." She blinked. The question wasn't casual, it was probing, almost philosophical. "I want a real chance," she said quietly. "A future where I don't have to beg for respect, where I'm not just another face in the crowd." "Ambitious," he murmured. "Ambition can be powerful, or dangerous." Maya frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" He didn't answer right away. "Depends on the person holding it." His tone wasn't judgmental, just observant. It unsettled her more than criticism ever could. Who was this driver to speak like a mentor, like someone who understood more than he should? She turned to the window again, heart thudding. No matter. Today was about her, her effort, her potential. Yet the world outside suddenly seemed bigger, darker. Every building felt like a silent witness to secrets she didn't know how to see yet. After a few minutes he spoke again, softer this time. "Can I give you some advice?" She sighed. "Advice is always free, and usually useless." He smiled faintly. "Walk into that room knowing you belong there, not hoping knowing. If you don't believe in your own worth, they won't either." This time, his words landed. She tucked them away like a shield. "Thank you," she murmured. Silence settled between them, but it wasn't heavy anymore. It felt reflective, like two strangers sharing a moment suspended between uncertainty and possibility. The journey wasn't long, but every second stretched with tension and hope. When they finally arrived, the building loomed above them like a citadel, glass, steel, and power carved into the sky. Maya's heart kicked, adrenaline beginning its climb. The car stopped. She reached for the door. "Wait," he said gently. She froze. He reached into the console and pulled out a simple umbrella. It's still raining. He opened her door and held it over her. Their steps synchronized as they moved toward the entrance. Anyone watching would think he was a friend, or something more, but to Maya he was still just a driver. "Good luck," he said, his voice low, almost a whisper lost to the rain. She nodded, nerves coiling tighter in her stomach. "Thanks. I'll try not to waste this opportunity." He paused down for a split second. Something flickered in his eyes, something like amusement, or maybe pride. "I don't think you could," he replied. She turned and disappeared into the gleaming lobby. He watched her go. Inside, everything felt colder. Marble floors gleamed, high ceilings echoed with distant footsteps. The receptionist's smile was polite, but unyielding, another gatekeeper to power. Interview candidates, elevator to the 42nd floor. She directed. 42 floors of doubt. 42 floors of climbing toward a future she wasn't certain she deserved but desperately needed. In the elevator, Maya closed her eyes and replayed his words. "Walk in knowing you belong." So simple, so terrifying. When the doors opened, she stepped out into a corridor lined with glass offices and hushed conversations. Every movement felt like a test. Every second felt like judgment. A woman in a charcoal suit led her into a waiting room filled with other candidates. Hungry eyes, impatient fingers, quiet rehearsals of practiced answers. Maya felt the weight of competition like a storm cloud pressing against her chest. Another deep breath. She sat. She waited. Minutes stretched like hours. Finally, Maya Khan. Her name sounded fragile in the air. She stood, legs stiff, hands freezing. She followed the assistant through a frosted glass door and into a large boardroom, a long table, panoramic windows. The The rain still etched lines against the sky. 3 executives sat at the far end, but her eyes locked onto the man in the center head seat, the one who stood, expression unreadable. As she entered, her heart stopped. It was him, the driver. Same calm eyes, same steady posture. No uniform nudge, a tailored suit and the quiet gravity of someone who owned every molecule of space around him. Her breath stuttered. He watched her, no arrogance, no cruelty, just a steady gaze that held every secret she had missed. "Good morning, Maya," he said calmly. "Please, have a seat." Shock crashed through her, heat spread across her face. Why hadn't she seen it? The confidence, the questions, the subtle way he listened, not like a servant, but like someone evaluating every word. "There must be some mistake," she whispered, sitting stiffly. You picked me up." A small, controlled nod. "I did. Why?" The other executives exchanged subtle glances, intrigued. He leaned forward slightly, not aggressive, not amused, simply honest. "I wanted to see who you were before you walked into this room, without the polished answers, without the mask." Maya's pulse hammered, embarrassment, anger, confusion, respect, all colliding. "You thought I was a driver," he continued, "and yet you spoke with conviction, vulnerability, purpose. That tells me more than any resume could." She swallowed hard. The room felt too bright, too exposed. Her confidence shaken but not broken fought to steady. "I didn't mean to assume," he finished, eyebrow raised. "We all do. That's why I test people." A long silence filled the room. Outside, lightning cracked across the sky, illuminating crimson streaks on the wet glass. He tapped the table lightly. "Tell me, Maya, now that you know who I am, do you wish you'd spoken to me differently?" The question hung like a blade suspended in the air. She felt every pair of eyes watching her, waiting. Her throat tightened. The elevator ride, the rain, his advice, the humility of the moment. It all crashed together in a single truth. She could apologize, or she could stand. Her voice trembled at first. "No," she whispered, then louder, steadier. "No, I spoke honestly, and I would rather be judged for who I am than who I think someone wants me to be." His expression didn't change, but something in the room did, as if a hidden mechanism clicked into place. "Good," he said softly. For the first time, she saw his approval not in his smile, but in the quiet weight of acknowledgement. Then he reached for a document on the table, a heartbeat, then another. Was this the moment that would define her future? He lifted the paper slowly, eyes still on hers. "Maya," he said, tone calm but unreadable, "before we continue, there's something you should know." Her breath caught. The rain outside seemed to pause, and his next words hovered at the edge of revelation, ready to change everything she thought she understood about this room, this company, and him. "There's something you should know." The boardroom felt suspended in breathless silence, the air charged like the final second before lightning strikes. Maya sat frozen, her fingers pressed against the cold armrest of the chair, pulse drumming in her ears. The man she had believed was a driver who now sat at the throne of this empire studied her with a calm that was almost unnerving. "You weren't brought here only for an interview," he said at last. A subtle shock rippled through her. The executives beside him didn't shift, didn't blink, as if they already knew the script she was just beginning to read. Her voice, when it came, was barely breath. "Then why am I here?" He didn't look away from her, not even for a second. "Because potential either flourishes under pressure or breaks." The room seemed to tighten around her. She felt the weight of glass, steel, and power closing in like a slow tide. "This isn't just a company," he continued, fingers steepled, tone neither harsh nor gentle, but carved from certainty. "It's a world, and no one enters this world without first showing who they are when no one is watching." Her chest rose and fell unevenly. She wasn't sure if she felt trapped or seen. "Does that frighten you?" he asked. Maya swallowed. "It should," she admitted, voice barely steady. "But no, I'm here because I earned this seat, not because someone handed it to me." A faint spark crossed his gaze, approval perhaps, or calculation. Then he shifted the file on the table toward her. Her resume sat on top, its crisp edges suddenly feeling inadequate beside the life she had just bared unknowingly. He spoke again, but softer, more deliberate. "We've already seen your achievements, your presentation materials, your proposals." Her brows knitted. "But I never sent." He lifted a hand. "You didn't need to. We do our homework." A strange chill ran down her spine. There was something unsettling in his phrasing, like this place didn't wait for candidates to apply, but hunted quietly for those worth its time. He leaned back slightly. "But what I wanted to see today was whether you understand something far more important than strategy or skill." "What's that?" she asked. He held her gaze. "Humility, courage, and the ability to recognize value beyond titles." The memory of her assumption hit her again. Sharp as broken glass. "You must be the driver." She had spoken without thinking, without asking, and yet she had spoken from the heart. Her chest tightened. "Is this a test everyone goes through?" "Everyone worth considering," he said quietly. "But every test looks different." The rain tapped harder against the windows, like impatient fingers urging her to listen deeper. "You judge people based on how they treat who they think is beneath them," Maya murmured, not accusing, just realizing. He didn't deny it. "Power exposes character, but so does vulnerability. In that instant, she felt small and immense at the same time, seen in a way she had never asked to be, yet somehow needed. He opened the file. An executive beside him cleared her throat. We've been monitoring emerging talent in development sectors. You've had obstacles, financial strain, family responsibilities, limited connections. The facts sat between them like stones dug from her ribs. You pushed through all of it, the woman continued. Alone, Maya's breath wavered. She hated how naked she felt, how truth stripped away the polish she had carefully crafted. They hadn't just read her resume, they had peered into her life, her sacrifices, the late nights and quiet tears no one ever acknowledged. Her voice trembled despite her will. I didn't ask for sympathy. No, the CEO replied gently. You fought for opportunity. That matters. He closed the file softly, like sealing a secret. But opportunity, he added, is not a gift. It's a transaction. You will give everything you aren't what you become, and in return we give you a stage to change the world. The ambition in his tone wasn't boastful, it was almost sacred, a promise bound in steel. Then he stood. The room felt smaller when he moved, like gravity curved around him. I built this company from the ground up, he said quietly. I've sat in every seat from the lobby to the boardroom, driven my own cars, carried my own luggage. People see success and assume it was always there. He paused, eyes distant for a moment. No one ever sees the nights you bleed for a future no one else believes in. Maya's breath caught. For the first time, he looked tired, human, a man sculpted by pressure, not privilege. I drove you this morning, he said, because every leader here must remember what it feels like to serve. And I wanted to see whether you saw dignity in service, or only status. Her heart clenched. Shame and understanding wove into something raw. Quietly she whispered, and did I fail? He held her gaze for a long electric second. No, he said finally. You hesitated, but you listened. You were honest. You didn't look down, you looked inward. That is rare. Relief flickered through her chest, but it did not settle. Something told her this was not the moment to exhale. He sat again, fingers resting on the table as if measuring fate. But this isn't about passing or failing. It's about choice. A tremor threaded through her choice. You can walk away now, he said. Pursue a safer path. Many talented people do. His tone wasn't mocking, it was almost understanding. Or you can stay and step into a world where expectations will break you before they build you. His gaze sharpened. Where loyalty matters more than convenience. Where pressure will grind you until either brilliance or regret remains. Her lungs felt tight. This wasn't a job offer, it was an initiation, a threshold. Before she could speak, another executive leaned forward. This company does not simply employ, it transforms. The question is whether you are ready to be reshaped. The rain outside softened, as if leaning in to listen. Maya's palms dampened, her throat ached. She had spent years clawing toward a future. But this felt like stepping into destiny or disaster with no middle ground. She inhaled, voice trembling with resolve and fear all tangled together. I didn't come here for comfort. I came here for impact. A pause. Then, I'm not afraid to be reshaped. Silence. Then the CEO nodded once, then stand. She stood. His voice lowered, almost ceremonial. There is a dinner tonight. Only our internal leadership attends. You will be there. Her heart jolted, her mind scrambled. Tonight, you want to be here? He asked, tone unflinching. Then step into the fire immediately. There are no gentle entries. She felt dizzy, like the world had tilted and she was trying to walk straight on unfamiliar ground. You have 6 hours, he continued. Go home, prepare. Tonight will tell us who you truly are in a room of wolves. A pulse of adrenaline ran through her veins. Wolves, not colleagues, not peers, predators of industry, visionaries sharpened by survival. And Maya, he added, voice dropping with weight, do not present yourself as someone trying to impress. Present yourself as someone worthy to sit beside us. Her breath hitched. Yes, he gave another slight nod, approval, or perhaps acknowledgement that her fate was now hers to define. As she turned to leave, her legs felt unsteady, like the floor beneath her was still shifting. The door closed behind her with a quiet click that echoed louder in her chest than any slam. Walking down the hallway, she felt the world tilt, fear, awe, ambition colliding in her bloodstream. The hum of office lights, distant footsteps, the low rattle of rain easing to a mist outside. Everything felt different now. But just as she reached the elevator, she paused. Her reflection in the glass stared back at her, not polished, not triumphant, but startled and young and burning with a fire she didn't fully understand yet. For a moment, doubt whispered, was she stepping into opportunity, or danger disguised as destiny? The elevator doors opened. She stepped inside. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. The wolves are watching already. Don't walk into the night thinking you're prey. Her pulse spiked, recognition and confusion tangled tight. Sent by one person, the CEO, and beneath it, a second message. Prove them wrong. The elevator door slid shut like the closing of a chapter she hadn't realized she had entered. And as she descended, slowly, silently, it dawned on her. This wasn't the end of a test. It was the beginning of a world where every move meant everything. And tonight, she would face the wolves. But what she didn't know, what no one told her, was that not all predators wear the same teeth, and one of them was waiting for her already. The elevator hummed its descent, each floor number blinking like a countdown to a life she hadn't fully agreed to but could no longer walk away from. Maya leaned her back against the glass wall, feeling the vibration of machinery through her spine. But beneath the physical sensation was something deeper, heavier, a weight she couldn't name yet. 6 hours. Dinner with wolves. Her phone screen dimmed, but the message echoed in her mind. Don't walk into the night thinking you're prey. The doors opened into the lobby, but the world suddenly felt muted, dull light. Blurred movement, voices softened to a distant murmur. She walked past the receptionist, who looked up as if sensing something different about her now. A shift, a crack in the universe. Outside, the rain had eased, leaving puddles that mirrored the sky's unsettled gray. The city breathed in fog and exhaust and ambition. Maya inhaled with it, grounding herself in the ordinary world before stepping once more into one she wasn't sure was meant for her. A sleek black car pulled up again. Another driver, this time older, composed, unfamiliar. He opened the back door silently. She hesitated before entering, suddenly aware of everything she hadn't noticed before. Was he watching her posture, her hesitation? Was everyone watching now? Of course they were. In a world built on power, observation was currency. She slid inside. The city rolled by in streaks of motion, steel towers, street vendors packing up, umbrellas like dark wings gliding under dripping eaves. Her fingers twitched against her phone, wanting to text someone, but who she had never had time to build a circle of confidants. Ambition didn't leave room for safety nets. Her apartment felt painfully small when she walked in, walls too close, air too still, the silence almost accusing. How many nights had she pushed herself here, convincing her future she was worthy of it? She moved mechanically, shower steam curling around her like a cocoon, and a warning. Her heartbeat echoed in her chest louder than the water hitting tile. When she stood before her wardrobe, she froze. What did one wear to meet wolves? Elegance could read as insecurity. Power dressing could look like imitation. Humility could be mistaken for weakness. Every choice felt like a battlefield disguised as fabric. Her fingers landed on a black dress, simple, structured, confident without begging for approval, paired with understated earrings and a smooth low bun. She looked at herself in the mirror and saw not a girl fighting to be seen, but a woman stepping into a storm with her chin raised. Yet her eyes still carried questions and fear. Not fear of failing, fear of what she might become if she didn't. A faint tremor of anxiety rippled through her, quiet but sharp. She placed a hand on the dresser to steady herself, stay grounded. Her breath steadied. The tremor passed. She left her apartment. The world outside had shifted into evenings, tense calmed, the city holding its breath. Between days, chaos, and nights, hunger. Lights flickered alive across skyscraper windows like constellations arranged by human hands. The car was waiting. This driver didn't speak, didn't look at her. Professional Salenta, ghost in a suit. The ride felt shorter this time, as though the city was pushing her toward whatever waited ahead. They pulled up to an estate perched above the city like a watchful predator, modern stone, glass like blades, lights glowing warm but sharp. Not a home, a statement. The security gate slid open without question. She stepped out, heels crunching softly on fine gravel. The night air smelled like rain-soaked earth and expensive cigars, with a hint of jasmine carried by passing breeze. Voices murmured from inside, low, confident, deliberate, the sound of people used to being heard. Maya's pulse quickened. She smoothed her dress, breathed once, twice, and walked toward the entrance. Inside, warmth met her, golden light spilling over polished marble floors, art that whispered legacy, not money. Conversations curled like smoke in the air, every word sharp, every laugh measured. People stood in clusters, the powerful effortlessly gravitating toward each other in invisible magnetic currents, and the CEO stood near the fireplace speaking to two board members, posture relaxed but presence unmistakable. He glanced up, and in that second, perception shifted. Not the room, not him. Her. She wasn't a candidate anymore. She was a variable. He gave the slightest nod, acknowledging her arrival without interrupting his conversation. Not dismissive, strategic. Her entrance mattered, and yet it didn't. She had been invited into the arena, but she was not yet part of the game. A woman approached her, early 40s perhaps, poised in a way that suggested she didn't move through the world so much as direct its current. You must be Maya. Her tone was gentle, but her eyes assessed everything. Yes, Maya kept her voice steady. I'm Alina. The woman smiled, not warmth exactly, but something like respect in the making. I remember my first evening here. Feels like walking into a myth, doesn't it? Maya exhaled softly. I'm still deciding if it's myth or illusion. Elena's smile curved. Good. Question everything, including applause. She tilted her head toward the crowd. Tell me, what do you see? Not just at faces, but expressions, stances. Who leaned in, who maintained distance, who guarded themselves like fortresses, who reveled like kings. Hunters, Maya whispered. Not hungry, but ready. Maya scanned again. She spotted a young man near the barn, of a smile, posture too stiff, laughter a shade too loud. Another woman clutching a champagne flute like it anchored her identity. There are a few, Maya murmured. They don't realize it yet. Elena's eyes gleamed. Then you're ahead already. They walked further in. Each step felt like stepping deeper into a labyrinth of ambition carved from glass and gold. Suddenly, a voice behind her cut the air, smooth-edged, masculine. A man approached, mid-30s, confident to the point of arrogance. His smile was carved, not worn. Eyes sharp, lips curved in practiced charm. Elena's expression cooled. Maya, this is Adrian, head of strategic development. Adrian's gaze slid over Maya with curiosity that felt like examination, not interest. Interesting choice, he said, not bothering to lower his tone. She's younger than I expected. Maya lifted her chin slightly. Potential doesn't age the way comfort does. His eyebrows rose a spark of challenge, sharp-tongued, dangerous in the wrong room, and valuable in the right one, she countered. A slow grin spread across his face. Not approval, recognition of a new player. Elena stepped closer to Maya. Be careful. Some here admire strength, others test it until it breaks, and him? Maya asked quietly. Elena's voice dropped. Both before Maya could reply, the CEO's voice carried across the room, not loud but naturally commanding. Everyone conversation halted like someone had taken scissors to sound itself. He stood beside the grand staircase, glass in hand, the fire casting sharp angles across his face. She is here not because she asked to be, but because she earned our attention without even knowing we were watching. A ripple moved through the crowd, curiosity, judgment, speculation. She has ambition without entitlement, grit without cynicism, and the courage to look power in the eye before she knows the cost. His gaze found hers, anchoring her in place. A quiet, controlled murmur, some nods, a few unreadable looks. Adrian's smirk subtly deepened approval, rivalry, or both. This moment was meant to elevate her, but something in the room shifted, energy tightening like the coiling of a spring. As the CEO finished his toast, a glass clink echoed, almost too sharp, too deliberate. Maya turned and froze. Standing near the edge of the crowd was a figure she hadn't expected to ever see here. Not in this world. Not in this lifetime of polished ambition and curated futures. Not dressed in wealth. Not hidden by sophistication. Wearing the same worn jacket she'd seen him leave home in countless mornings, hands rough. Expression stunned, overwhelmed, and afraid. He did not belong in this room. And seeing him here was a boundary collapsing between who she was and who she was trying to become. Her heart dropped so hard her knees nearly buckled. He wasn't looking at her. He was looking at the CEO. And the CEO looked back at him with recognition. What was this? Why was her father here? Why did the CEO know him? A cold, eerie understanding flickered at the edges of her mind, too large to grasp yet too dangerous to ignore. Her father finally saw her. His eyes widened, and not proud, not surprised, haunted. She opened her mouth, no sound forming. But in that suspended moment, one truth crystallized like ice in her veins. This world hadn't just chosen her. It had been connected to her long before she ever stepped inside. And she had never known. The wolves weren't the only ones watching. Someone had been waiting. Her father's eyes locked with hers. And for a heartbeat the whole room faded, voices dissolving, lights dimming, champagne bubbles frozen mid-rise. The world had been expanding for her, upward and glittering. Now it snapped inward like a trap closing. He shouldn't be here. Not in this gilded world of power and quiet knives. Not tonight. Not with that expression, like a man standing at the edge of a cliff he once vowed never to look down again. Her pulse thundered. She took a shaky step forward, but someone else moved first. The CEO, his composure always so serene, so in control, shifted subtly but unmistakably, eyes hardening, jaw locking. Attention that didn't come from surprise, but from memory. Recognition laced not with warmth, but with history. Elena leaned close, her voice barely a whisper. Do you know him? Maya's throat tightened. He's my father. The silence that followed wasn't hers to fill. It belonged to the room, heavy, electric, waiting to see what story had just bled through the polished veneer of this place. Her father took a step toward the CEO, and his voice, quiet, cracked around the edges, broke the stillness. I told myself I would never come back here. Back here. The words hit Maya like a punch. Back implied belonging or exile. And all this time she thought she was standing at the gates of a world she'd discovered alone. But maybe she'd only been walking toward a truth already written in shadows around her life. The CEO spoke, his voice steady but stripped of the warmth he had shown her earlier. You shouldn't have. A murmur rippled through the crowd. It wasn't curiosity. It was alertness. The sudden awareness that something personal and dangerous had breached their sanctuary of control. Maya's father looked older than she had ever seen him, shoulders heavy with years, regret carved deep in the lines around his eyes. I had no choice. The CEO's gaze flicked to Maya just once, and something in his expression wavered. A crack, doubt, guilt, or something darker. Maya felt the ground tilt again. She finally found her voice, brittle but determined. What is happening? Neither man answered. Instead, Adrian stepped forward, tone deceptively casual. This evening is taking an interesting turn. His smirk wasn't amusement, it was opportunity. A shark scenting blood in still water. Her father ignored him. His eyes were on the CEO, on a past that was unraveling into the present with a quiet cruelty. You promised, her father said softly. You said my family would never be touched by this world. The room went utterly still. A promise, a boundary, a betrayal. Maya's breath caught like she'd stepped into cold water. What promise? Her father turned to her, and there was pain in his eyes, not disappointment, not shame. Pain of someone who had carried silence like a wound. I worked here, he said, voice trembling despite his effort. Long before you were old enough to remember. Long before I understood what loyalty in a place like this demands. Maya's stomach tightened. Memories flickered, her father coming home late, exhausted. Whispered arguments her young ears never understood. The day everything changed and he left whatever job had drained him hollow. She had assumed life happened to him. She hadn't known life had chased him. The CEO's voice cut the air with precise control. Leave now. This is not your moment. No, her father replied, surprising everyone including Maya. This is exactly the moment. He looked at her again, and the truth in his gaze broke something inside her. You think you fought your way into this world by yourself, he whispered. You think no one saw you, no one cleared a path. But power doesn't just notice people, it chooses them. The words landed like weight across her chest, choking heavy. She stumbled back a step. What are you saying? Her father's voice cracked. You were watched long before today. The room held its breath. Watched. Chosen not for who she fought to become, but for something she never knew she was tangled in. Her mind raced to images colliding every struggle, every late night, every moment she believed she was carving her own destiny. Was it ever truly hers? The CEO's expression shifted, not cold now, controlled regret, or carefully measured restraint. Maya, he began, but she stepped back again, raising a trembling hand as if shielding herself. No. Her voice shook but held. Not yet, her father continued, words trembling like old fractures breaking open. I left to protect you. I swallowed my pride, built a life from dust, walked away from everything so you would never have to bow to anyone here. He looked around, eyes burning with sharpened memory. I knew what this place asked, what it took. She stared at him, voice barely a breath. And yet I'm here. A tear slid down his cheek, not weakness but devastation. Because fate doesn't bend to promises. The CEO exhaled quietly, a sound like surrender, or inevitability. This conversation is not for tonight. Alina stepped closer to Maya, voice soft but urgent. We need to move. This isn't the place to process, but Maya didn't move. The room felt like a glass cage full of eyes and secrets, and she was no longer sure whether she stood inside or outside it. Her father's voice dropped to a whisper only she could hear. I fear there are things you were never meant to know, and now you cannot turn back. His hand lifted slightly, trembling, as if reaching for her childhood, for the years when things were simple and love was protection enough. But he didn't touch her. Couldn't, because touching meant claiming a past that was already bleeding into the present. A low chime resonated from somewhere, soft, elegant, ominous, like the toll of a distant clock. Time shifting. Structure cracking. The CEO's gaze locked with hers. Not authority now, not power, something more fragile and dangerous. You deserve the truth, he said quietly, and it is coming, but not here. She shook her head slowly. Why did you pick me? He didn't blink. Because strength recognizes strength. Her father's voice broke through, raw. No, because debt recognizes blood. The room inhaled sharply. And suddenly Maya understood this wasn't coincidence, this wasn't merit alone. This was inheritance, not of wealth, of unfinished war. Her heart pounded, breaths shallow, the world narrowing to two men and a truth she hadn't consented to inherit. The CEO stepped forward, lowering his voice so only she could hear. Tonight changes nothing about your capability, only your perspective, as if identity were a rearranged reflection, not a fracture spreading through everything she believed. Her legs felt weak, the world swayed. Elena's hand steadied her elbow, firm but gentle. Breathe, she murmured. Not everything revealed tonight is meant to break you, but the words felt like a promise she hadn't earned yet. A storm churned inside her chest, fear, betrayal, pride, confusion. Anger tangled so tightly she couldn't tell where one emotion ended and another began. Her father whispered again, voice hoarse with desperation. Please, come with me. Walk away before this world owns you. Silence carved into the room like a second heartbeat. Eyes watched. Future, balanced. Choice, suspended in the air like lightning waiting for a place to strike. Maya looked at her father, love, worn and imperfect, trying to save her the only way he knew. And she looked at the CEO, power, poised and patient, holding doors she didn't know whether to enter or run from, to worlds, to fates. One truth unraveling in real time, and she was standing in the tier between them. Her breath trembled. The air felt electric, charged, on the edge of something catastrophic and transformative. And then a voice she did not recognize spoke from behind her, low and chilling. She deserves to know why she was really chosen. The room tensed. Her father closed his eyes in dread. The CEO's jaw locked hard, sharp, unmasked. Maya turned slowly, pulse a thunderstorm in her veins. A figure stepped forward from the shadows at the edge of the gathering, someone she hadn't noticed. Someone who had been watching quietly, waiting for the moment to strike truth like a blade. Everything inside her stilled. Her destiny was no longer arriving. It was here. And whatever came next would change everything. The figure stepped forward, each footfall carrying the weight of something long buried and terribly inevitable. The crowd parted instinctively, not in fear, but in recognition of a secret power finally stepping into the light. He was neither young nor old, neither soft nor hardened. His face was carved not by years, but by choices, a presence that did not ask for attention. It commanded it by existing. Maya felt her skin prickle, as if a memory she didn't possess had brushed against her. Her father stiffened, shoulders bracing like a man preparing for impact. The CEO's breath still so small, a movement she would have missed it if she weren't watching him the way he once watched her. The newcomer's eyes found hers. "You weren't chosen," he said softly. "You were owed." The words washed over her like cold rain, sharp, clarifying, merciless. Her pulse climbed, each beat an alarm inside her ribs. Owed, the syllable broke in her throat. He nodded, gaze unwavering. "You carry a legacy that was promised, long before you understood the currency of sacrifice." Her father stepped between them so quickly the air trembled. "She carries nothing. I walked away so she would never bear it. And yet here she stands," the man replied, voice neither cruel nor kind, just true. "Fate does not honor bargains born of fear." Her father's voice cracked, desperate. "I didn't fear them. I feared myself, what I was when I belonged here." Maya swallowed hard. The edges of the world blurred, not from tears but from the sudden understanding that everything solid was shifting beneath her. She looked at him, this man who raised her, who tried to build a life from silence and distance and weary hands, and whispered, "What did you walk away from?" He didn't answer, not immediately. His breath shook. His eyes glossed as if dust from old memories had risen to choke him, but the newcomer answered for him. He walked away from power, from duty, from blood. The final word struck like thunder. Blood. Her chest tightened. Blood. The CEO's voice, quiet, formal, almost reverent. "You are not here by accident, Maya. You are here because this world was yours long before you ever reached for it." Her fingers trembled at her sides. "I don't understand." Her father spoke at last, voice sanded raw by years of silence. "I was meant to lead this place, but leadership in this world does not come freely. It demands loyalty, sacrifice, and acceptance of what darkness hides behind ambition." He turned to her, and for the first time she saw not the man he had become, but the man he once was, sharp, fierce, chosen. "I could not raise you inside that cage, so I chose exile." Her voice was barely breathed. "And now I'm dragged back into it anyway." "Not dragged," the newcomer corrected. "You walked. Your ambition led you here." Her father flinched as if struck, but she did not look away because truth, once spoken, doesn't retreat. She whispered, trembling, "I was trying to build something for myself." "You were," the CEO replied softly. "And you did. That is why this moment matters, because you arrived not as inheritance, but as force." The room seemed to pulse, heartbeats overlapping, histories colliding, futures trembling on the verge of decision. Her father's voice rose, breaking. "She is not theirs to shape." "No," the newcomer agreed. "She is hers to choose." Choice. The word hung between them, sharper than conflict, heavier than fate. Maya closed her eyes. Silence wrapped around her like a storm's calm center. She could hear her heartbeat, feel the tremor in her limbs, taste the metallic edge of fear and power on her tongue. Every memory flickered, late nights studying, clawing toward dreams with no safety net, believing success came from merit, not lineage, believing she could rise because she was capable. Now she saw the threads beneath the surface of her life, a path not chosen freely, but paved by ghosts. She opened her eyes. "What do you want from me?" The newcomer held her gaze. "Truth and choice. Two luxuries most never receive. And if I choose to walk away?" Her voice steadied, thin steel beneath the fracture. Her father's breath caught. The CEO's expression sharpened. The newcomer did not hesitate. "Then your father's sacrifice completes its circle, and this world will let you go." Her father's shoulders sagged, relief flickering in his eyes like fragile light. "But," the man continued, "you must understand what you leave behind. Once you let it go, you can never return. Never. A door closing not just on power, but on identity and questions that would never be answered, on a life built in shadow and promise. And if I stay," she whispered. Her father's face crumpled. Elena's fingers tightened around her arm. Silent support, silent fear. And the CEO, the man who had watched her rise with that unreadable pride, looked at her with something dangerously close to vulnerability. "If you stay," the newcomer said, "you do not inherit his fate. You carve your own. You lead, because you earned the right and were born for it. Born, earned." Two truths that did not cancel each other, but fought inside her like twin storms. Her breath shook. A tear escaped without permission. Anger, grief, pride, all tangled. "I hate that my story was touched by something I didn't choose." Her father moved, aching, grief pouring from him. "I tried to spare you." She looked at him, really looked, hand, saw not a man who failed her, but a man who bled himself to protect a daughter who still collided with destiny. "I don't blame you," she whispered, "but I can't live as a shadow of what might have been." She turned to the CEO, then the newcomer, her voice trembling but rising, a spark turning to flame. "If I stay because I fight for what I become. Not because I am someone's debt. Not because blood pulls strings I never saw." Her father's hand reached for hers, shaking. "Please don't let them claim you." She held his gaze, tears finally falling. No one claims me, not even fate. He froze, hurt, desperate, proud all at once. Maya, she leaned close, voice breaking. You left to protect me. Now let me choose to protect myself. His breath shuddered, but he released her hand. Or maybe she was the one who pulled away. Silence fell like snow, soft, heavy, impossible to ignore. The newcomer bowed his head slightly. Respect. Recognition. The CEO exhaled, and something eased in his posture, like a tension he carried for years had finally met its moment. Maya wiped her face, straightened her spine. Tell me the truth, all of it, and then I decide who I become. The newcomer studied her, long and deep, then stepped aside, not blocking, not guiding, simply clearing space. Then tonight, a legacy awakens. Not inherited, chosen. Her father's voice barely rose above a whisper. I am terrified for you, so am I. She whispered back. But fear isn't a prison unless we kneel to it. He closed his eyes, pain fracturing across his expression, but beneath it something else, a fragile, reluctant awe. The CEO stepped forward. There is one last truth you must hear before choice becomes destiny. Maya inhaled, steadying the quake inside her ribcage. Say it, his voice lowered, intimate and unarmed. You were not just watched, you were believed in. Long before you believed in yourself. A sting of emotion hit her chest, unexpected, sharp, unbearably human. Her heartbeat slowed, not from calm but from clarity. From standing in the eye of the storm and realizing she wasn't breaking, she was becoming. The newcomer nodded once, then let the truth rise. The room leaned forward, as if the world itself was listening. Maya held her breath. The ceiling lights dimmed, subtle and ceremonial, shadows sharpening around them like a stage waiting for revelation. And in the suspended breath of the gathering, as history, choice, and consequence braided into one trembling moment, the CEO opened his mouth to speak the truth that would change everything. The world poised, heartbeats balanced on a knife's edge, future waiting to exhale. And just before his first word broke the world open, the storm inside her stilled. Ready, terrified, unshaken, everything was about to come undone, and she was no longer running from it. She inhaled, bracing for the truth. Then the lights flickered once, twice, and the room plunged into darkness. Darkness swallowed the room, thick and immediate, as though the world itself needed a moment to breathe before rewriting its truth. Gasps rippled, shoes scraped against polished marble. Someone whispered a frantic question, but Maya didn't move. Her body remained suspended in that breath between who she had been and who she might become. A hum stirred low, electric, the building's pulse awakening. Emergency lights flickered to life in soft amber halos, painting everyone in warm shadows. Not chaos, not danger. Just pause, a forced stillness. A reminder that revelation didn't always arrive in lightning. Sometimes it came in the hush after. The CEO's silhouette re-emerged, steady, unfazed, eyes finding hers through the dim. He didn't rush, didn't reclaim the dramatic moment that had slipped through the blackout. Instead, he allowed silence to settle like dust in sunlight, visible, quiet, inevitable. Her father's hand brushed hers again, not to hold her back this time, but in instinctive protection. She didn't pull away, but she didn't lean in either. Their fingers touched like two ships passing in fog, connected by history, separated by the tides of choice. When the full lights returned, they rose slowly, like dawn lifting over mountains. The room, once electric with anticipation, now felt reverent, as if the truth had already been spoken in the dark, and words were merely ceremony. The newcomer lifted his gaze to her, voice soft enough that only those closest heard, yet steady enough to anchor a building. Sometimes, he murmured, the world dims, so we can see what light we carry on our own. A flicker passed through her chest, fear, hope, something in between. Tell her father whispered, but there was no battle left in his tone, only surrender to whatever future she chose. The CEO took a breath, not dramatic, not heavy, just real. The truth is simple, he said. You were never chosen because of blood alone. You were chosen because, in every room, in every struggle, in every quiet moment you thought no one noticed, you led. Maya swallowed hard, throat tight. We watched to see whether legacy would make you entitled, he continued, voice warm with something almost like pride. Instead, you worked harder. You rose not because you were destined, but because you insisted on rising. Her father's eyes glimmered not in pain now, but in fragile dawning relief and something like peace. Maya exhaled, not in triumph, not in fear, in acceptance. Wind brushed the tall windows, a soft rustle like nature acknowledging transformation. Somewhere beyond the glass, city lights blinked against the night, unaware a world had just shifted inside one forgotten floor. What happens now? She asked quietly. The newcomer stepped closer, but not dominating, standing alongside her path, not in front of it. Now, he said, you decide what this legacy becomes, not by inheritance, by intent. And if I choose differently tomorrow? She murmured, half statement, half challenge. Then tomorrow you choose again, he replied. Leadership is not a crown, it is a decision repeated every dawn. Her heart felt strangeful and weightless, like a door she didn't know she'd been pressing against had finally opened. She turned to her father. You didn't steal my choice, she whispered. You protected my right to make one. Tears gathered in his eyes, soft and unguarded. I feared the world would take you, he admitted. I never realized you were born to meet it. She touched his hand not as a child clinging, but as a woman acknowledging the bridge that carried her here. Thank you for giving me the chance to find my own strength. His breath shuddered, but there was no sorrow now. Only pride threaded in restraint, like sunrise behind clouds. Elena stepped forward too, eyes shining with quiet understanding. Whatever you choose, she whispered. You don't walk into it alone. The room eased, attention dissolving like ice under soft day. People shifted, not in distrust or anticipation now, but in subtle deference, not to a title, not to lineage, to a choice made in the dark. Maya inhaled slowly, letting the air fill spaces she hadn't known were hollow. Then she lifted her chin, not in arrogance, but in clarity. I'll lead, she said, but not as another shadow in an old dynasty. I'll lead in the light. The CEO nodded once, not triumphant but humbled. Then we follow, and we build a world worthy of being seen. Applause didn't come, not yet. This wasn't a victory. It was a beginning. Beginnings aren't loud, they tremble quietly, like seeds splitting open beneath soil. Her father squeezed her hand once more, a final tether loosening without breaking. Where do you start? He asked, voice gentle, curious. She looked around the room, not at power or legacy, but at people, at potential, at a future unwritten. By asking what hasn't been questioned, she said softly. By rebuilding from truth, not tradition. Outside, the first hint of dawn brushed the horizon, light bleeding into sky. It felt symbolic, but not forced. As though sunrise arrived not because the world demanded it, but because she was finally ready to see it. They walked together out of the room, into quiet halls humming with life, into a world both familiar and reborn. Her steps were steady now, not because she knew every answer, but because she finally believed in her capacity to find them. Before the elevator doors closed, she looked back once at the space where fear became choice, where legacy bowed to will, where darkness had offered clarity instead of threat. Sometimes the world takes everything away so you can learn what was truly yours all along. As she stepped into the new day, the building behind her no longer felt like a labyrinth, it felt like a foundation. And somewhere deep within, a calm voice rose, no longer uncertain, no longer seeking permission. I am not here because destiny chose me. I am here because I chose myself. The elevator descended, smooth and silent. Her father stood beside her, not overshadowing, not leading, simply present. The kind of presence that honors growth by stepping back when it's time. At the lobby, sunlight streamed through glass, catching dust like constellations in motion. She paused at the threshold, breathing in the world anew. Power was not a throne after all. It was a quiet promise kept first with oneself. She turned to those with her, offering a small, steady smile. Let's begin. And as she stepped forward into the waking city, one truth settled, deep, warm, undeniable. We are not defined by the names we inherit, but by the courage to become more than them. If your past hands you a legacy you never asked for, will you run from it, or reshape it into something that finally belongs to you? The morning welcomed her like a blank page waiting for the first stroke of ink, and she walked into it not as someone claimed by fate, but as someone who had chosen to meet her own future.